Ukraine is facing a catastrophic manpower shortage. Radio Free Europe. With desertions, low recruitment, Ukraine's infantry crisis deepens. As Russia presses its offensive, Ukraine faces a crisis experts say is as critical as its shortages of ammunition and weapons, a dwindling supply of infantry. Where do they go? This is where the soldiers have gone.
Before the start of the full-scale invasion, there were 3 rows of buried heroes. But now, our flags, I think they can be seen from space. We have 2 entire blocks of them. Our Alley of Glory is one of the largest in Ukraine. The price is bloody, very bloody. There's simply no words. When you stand here, next to our boys and girls, there is a lump in your throat. No words. You look at these faces, these portraits. This is the pride of the nation. And Kharkiv feels this. Kharkiv lives. Kharkiv fights. Kharkiv stands. But the price. I want people to remember who we have to thank for Kharkiv's survival.
Not including those missing in action.
According to Grok AI, not exactly a pro-Russian source, this is an overview of Ukrainian military casualties. Estimating military casualties in the Russia-Ukraine war is challenging due to limited official disclosures, varying methodologies, and the distinction between killed in action, KIA, confirmed deaths, and missing in action, MIA, unaccounted for personnel, many presumed dead but not yet verified. Ukraine rarely publishes comprehensive figures, and independent trackers like UA Losses rely on open source verification. Obituaries decrease. Official Ukrainian statements such as those from President Zelensky tend to underreport KIA to maintain morale and avoid compensation payouts, while MIA numbers are often higher due to battlefield chaos. The ratio on average across sources, MIA is roughly 0.8 to 1 times KIA. What that means is that for every soldier in one of them graves, there's another soldier that's either disintegrated, blown to bits, buried in muck, or held by the Russians. Drivers, artillerymen, and cooks are holding the line, says Baden Krokovic, an officer formerly with the Azov Brigade's headquarters. A maximum of 12 fighters hold sections 5 to 10 kilometers wide. The lack of manpower is allowing Russia to employ what Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Alexander Syrskyi, recently called total infiltration tactics. Small infantry groups make it through Ukrainian lines, including into Pokrovsk, the key city in the Donetsk region that is likely the main target of Russia's current offensive. One of the brigades responsible for defending the area had run out of infantry, according to the Ukrainian conflict monitoring group Deep State, allowing the Russians through. A video from July, geolocated to a gas station in the southern part of the city, shows a Ukrainian transport coming under fire from one of the infiltration groups, and other units had to be sent in to attempt to clear the area. The manpower gap flips in Russia's favor. Early in the war, the balance was radically different. In the lead up to the full-scale invasion in 2022, Russia's army had about 1 million troops, with some 150 to 190,000 concentrated along Ukraine's border with Russia and Belarus. At the time, Ukraine's military had some 260,000 in active service, but the country mobilized up to 700,000 men by midsummer, handing it a manpower advantage over the invading Russian forces, who had by then been expelled from the Kiev region. Russia was forced to conduct a partial mobilization of about 300,000 reservists to stabilize the front line after yielding thousands of square kilometers of territory in eastern Ukraine. In 2023, Russia's recruitment picked up, introducing thousands of prison inmates to the army, as well as mercenary groups like the infamous Wagner private military company, and offering significant sign-up bonuses to volunteers. Ukraine, on the other hand, was struggling to find new recruits to replace losses. No, guess what, guys? It was actually Ukraine that started recruiting prisoners first. Anyways, as analysts from the investigative group, the Conflict Intelligence Team, observed, this was the year momentum shifted in Moscow's favor, as Russia's recruitment drive neutralized Ukraine's manpower advantage, while Kiev faced mounting difficulties replenishing its ranks. In 2025, according to the Military Balance, an annual assessment of military capabilities worldwide, Russia's number of active duty personnel reached over 1.13 million, with Syrskyi claiming some 640,000 of them were on Ukrainian territory, a figure echoed by Russian President Vladimir Putin. While Ukraine's total troop strength is officially over 1 million, the Warsaw-based Center for Eastern Studies says not more than 300,000 of them are deployed on the front lines. Russia recruiting more than Ukraine. According to the OSW, Ukraine needs to recruit some 300,000 soldiers to replenish its brigades, some of which are only at 30% strength. Last year, it managed 200,000, a number that proved insufficient to maintain unit strength at an adequate level, given the scale of desertions and personnel losses, the OSW report says. Currently, Ukraine recruits are estimated 17,000 to 24,000 people per month, or about 204,000 and 288,000 per year. While it has had to increase its sign-up bonuses, Russia's recruitment is estimated to have increased to a rate of about 30,000 per month, an advantage of roughly 70 to 150,000 per year. Thousands AWOL. Beyond the gap in recruitment figures, Ukraine's army has a desertion problem with tens of thousands of instances of soldiers going absent without leave recorded per year. According to popular Ukrainian war correspondent Yuri Butasov, the Anne of Kiev Brigade, trained in France, had up to 1,700 soldiers go AWOL between March and November of 2024. A staggering figure, given Ukraine's average brigade strength is about 4,000 to 5,000. The founder of the Front Intelligence Insight Group says cases of forced mobilization, where Ukrainian men are taken off the street to a recruitment center, contribute to the desertion problem.
Ребенка, простите.
Допоможіть! Люди! Викрадають! Допоможіть!
Что происходит, блядь? Что происходит?
with mobilized recruits often less motivated than those who volunteer. Really? You don't say. Men who are physically kidnapped off the streets have low morale and aren't as trustworthy as volunteers? A Ukrainian commander told CNN that the majority of these recruits leave their positions. They go to the positions once, and if they survive, they never return. They either leave their positions, refuse to go into battle, or try to find a way to leave the army. Can Ukraine close the gap? Ukraine has adopted several policies to address the recruitment and desertion issues. Soldiers who went AWOL have been allowed to avoid prosecution by voluntarily returning to their units. Tens of thousands have done so, although the numbers of those deserting are still higher.
Ukraine's army is bleeding at a catastrophic rate. Tens of thousands abandoned their posts. Reports from the front lines say that entire units vanished from defensive lines. And on the Eastern Front, Russian forces are advancing at the fastest pace in over 2 years. The brutal mathematics of attrition warfare reveal a crisis that threatens Ukraine's ability to hold the line. Take a look at this next report for more details.
The front lines are crumbling. Ukrainian soldiers fleeing their positions in record numbers, exhausted, demoralized, pushed beyond human limits. The manpower crisis that military commanders whispered about for months has exploded into the open, and Russia is capitalizing on every weakness. Reports confirm a critical manpower shortage. Nearly 100,000 young men have fled the country in just 2 months, leaving the trenches catastrophically thin. The secretary of the Ukrainian Parliament's Defense Committee says that 4 out of 5 Ukrainians are fleeing military training centers after being drafted into the army. Ukraine's commanders also acknowledge they lack enough troops to hold strategic positions against the grinding Russian advance.
Despite pressure from both the Trump and Biden administration, Ukraine has so far resisted lowering its draft age to 18, a move that would be deeply unpopular with the public. Ukrainian men aged 25 and above can be drafted after the age was lowered from 27 in April of 2024. However, the military has begun offering monthly salaries of 120,000 hryvnia, about 2,900, and other financial incentives to incentivize those aged between 18 and 24 to volunteer. Presidential military advisor Pavlo Palasa said in April that the new program had drawn just 500 recruits in the first week since it was launched, and it's unclear whether the figures have picked up since then. Well, you know what's interesting? Is Ukraine offers all these incentives, but when the soldier is killed in action, Ukraine calls it missing in action to avoid making the payment to the soldier's family. Disgusting. This is Ukrainian MP Artyom Dmitruk.
Because Zelensky is used to have all these means, all these funds, all these payouts that the families of the killed soldiers are supposed to receive, and also the families of those who were severely wounded. So he is appropriating all of those via his proxies, not by the military, not by the soldiers who are there at the front line, but via those pixel freaks, so to say, and they are just taking those money that belongs to the people who were killed, their salaries, and then they just take those payments that their families of those who were killed or wounded are supposed to receive. And since Zelensky is used to take all this money for himself, to steal all his money for himself, and it's one of the main causes, one of the main reasons why it's happening.
While U.S. President Donald Trump has recently threatened increased pressure on Moscow if the ceasefire deal is not agreed to soon, analysts haven't seen a shift in the Kremlin's policy yet. I do not observe any substantive change in Russian tactics toward Trump or Ukraine. Tatiana Stananova, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center, said on X. For some bizarre reason, Donald Trump is under the illusion that he can try to browbeat or intimidate or pressure the Russians to make serious concessions in a war that they are winning. It's not going to happen, Trump. End this war.